Something is happening across this country that almost no one is talking about out loud. Entrepreneurs from New York, from California, from Illinois, from New Jersey, they're all quietly opening new LLCs in Florida, not announcing it on LinkedIn, not posting about it, just doing it. And the reason why has very little to do with weather and almost everything to do with a structural advantage that most business owners do not even realize exist. Now stick with me, because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly what these entrepreneurs know that you don't. All right, let's dive into this one. I'm Santiago Cueto, board certified international business law expert and best-selling author based right here in Miami, Florida. I have spent 3 decades helping entrepreneurs structure their businesses for protection, for tax efficiency, and for privacy. And the trend I'm about to walk you through is one I'm watching unfold in my own office week after week with founders who have figured out something the rest of the market hasn't. So let's start with the obvious one, because it's the entry point. But it is not the real story. Florida has no personal state income tax. None. Zero. That alone moves people. When you live in a state taking 9, 10, 13% of the top of every dollar you earn, and you realize there's a state right next door taking nothing, the math becomes almost impossible to ignore. But here's the thing. Tax savings is the headline. It is not the reason these founders are restructuring. It is just the door they walk through. The real prize is what waits on the other side. Now here's where it gets interesting. When you form an LLC in most states, your name ends up plastered on a public filing. Anyone with an internet connection can pull it up. Your competitors, your ex-business partner, plaintiff lawyers are fishing for deep pockets. But Florida operates differently. The Florida Revised LLC Act only requires the disclosure of an authorized representative or manager on the public articles of an organization. The actual ownership of the company, the members behind the entity, does not need to appear on that public-facing document. I call this the member veil, and it is the reason a high net worth founder in California can quietly own a Florida holding company without their name showing up in a Google search next to it. Right now, you're probably thinking, okay, but what about the federal beneficial ownership reporting rule everyone was worried about? The Corporate Transparency Act? Well, that's a fair question. The law has been a moving target, and courts have weighed in. The FinCEN has revised its rules multiple times. The reporting requirements that applied last year may not be the reporting requirements that apply tomorrow. I'm not going to pretend that I can't predict what FinCEN does next. What I will tell you is this. Federal beneficial ownership reporting goes to a federal database with restricted access. The Florida public filing goes to a Google search result. There is a meaningful difference between those two things, so stop assuming that one cancels out the other, because they don't. But privacy is only one layer. Here's the layer that actually moves sophisticated entrepreneurs. It's called charging order protection. And in Florida, the protection you get for a multi-member LLC is dramatically stronger than what you get for a single-member LLC. The reason this matters is simple. If somebody sues you personally, a car accident, a divorce, a business dispute that has nothing to do with the company, and they win a judgment, they want to come after every asset you own. In a poorly structured single-member LLC, a creditor can sometimes step into your shoes and force a sale of the business itself. In a properly structured Florida multi-member LLC, the creditor is generally limited to a charging order, meaning they can only collect distributions when and if the company chooses to make them. I call this the charging order wall, and is the reason entrepreneurs are not just forming LLCs in Florida, they are forming the right kind of LLC with the right number of members in the right structural configuration. Now, if you're still watching this far, you're already ahead of about 90% of the founders out there who are forming entities blind. So do me a favor and tap that like button and subscribe to this channel, because the next piece I'm about to walk you through is the part most attorneys never tell you about. And it is the difference between a Florida LLC that actually protects you and one that is just an expensive piece of paper. Now here's what the sophisticated founders are actually doing. They're not just opening one LLC in Florida, they are building what I call the Florida stack. An operating company that runs the actual business, a holding company above it that owns the operating company, and in many cases, a real estate holding entity for any property the business owns or uses. Each layer does a different job. The operating company takes the daily risk. The holding company holds the assets, and the real estate entity isolates the property. When somebody sues the operating company and somebody eventually sues every operating company, the lawsuit hits a layer designed to absorb it, not the layer where the wealth actually lives. This is not exotic. This is not aggressive. This is structural hygiene that any business with meaningful revenue should be running. But here's where most people get it wrong. They form the entities. They never sign operating agreements. They commingle funds between the layers. They sign contracts in their own personal name instead of the entity's name. And then when a lawsuit comes, opposing counsel pierces the corporate veil in about 10 minutes because the layers were never actually operated as separate companies. The structure on paper means nothing if the conduct does not match. So stop treating LLC formation like a finish line. It is the starting line. The Florida stack only works when every layer is documented, capitalized, and operated as the independent entity it claims to be. So why are entrepreneurs quietly forming new LLCs in Florida? It is not the beaches, it is not the weather. It is the convergence of four things. No personal state income tax, the member veil that keeps ownership off public filings, the charging order wall that protects multi-member structures from outside creditors, and the ability to build a Florida stack that compartmentalizes risk across multiple layers. Done together with proper documentation and ongoing operational discipline, that combination is exactly why founders from high-tax, high-liability states keep showing up in my office asking the same question. How fast can we get this done? Now, if this video gave you something to think about, hit that like button and subscribe, and let me know in the comments which of these four advantages surprised you the most. I'm Santiago Cueto, your Florida business attorney. Watch this next video where I explain Florida's new Series LLC law and how it's a game changer for anyone doing business in Florida.